What you just watched was a short clip from one of our sermon reviews. If you're interested in the rest of the review, make sure you check out the link in the description below.
You want blessing of God, and to get favor and blessing, what do you have to do? You have to do what he says. So if he says to me, as the more you see the day approaching, don't skip out. As the more you see the day approaching, assemble in the things of God. Sure, it's difficult for people now, but see, that's what I'm saying when judgment. We think of judgment as being God taking a hammer. I'm going to beat you in the head. I'm going to cut you off. Bam, bam, bam. Whip you, chastise you. God in judgment weighs a situation to see what he feels about the particular situation. So the reason it begins in the house of God, the reason God's in the cleaning up part of his house is because guess what? He's headed toward the world.
Okay. This is a very good example of what happens when you start with a bad exegetical working of Scripture. It leads you to a bad application of Scripture. So he's starting with the assumption from reading 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 17, that God has to judge the church before he judges the world. He's currently judging the church now, he says, based on the fact that people aren't coming back, like this really weird loose connection. But he's got to do that first so that he can judge the world. And he slips in this little thing here where he says, I want favor, you want blessing. And to get those things from God, we have to obey God. Now, this is a very thin line here that I want to walk. But that is very close to saying, I can coerce God into giving me favor and blessing if I just am good and do what he asks me to do, right? So this isn't I do things out of love for the Father because I know how good he is and how blessed I am, and the fact that Jesus came and died for me, rose from the grave, ascended into heaven, is coming back again one day, right? The idea here is that, like, that's not even in the picture. That's not why I come to church. I don't come to church to worship Jesus. I come to church because if I do, then I get favor and blessing from God, because it's a kind of a tit for tat sort of situation, right? I give you this, you give me that. That's not how the gospel works. I understand who Jesus is, that I have received undeserved grace and mercy, and therefore I come with other believers to worship and fellowship together and sing and talk about and pray to this great God and King. And if I get nothing from him other than the grace and mercy, that is way more than I deserve. If I get any favor, if I get any blessing, that's icing on the cake, friend. What you just watched was a short clip from one of our sermon reviews. If you're interested in the rest of the review, make sure you check out the link in the description below.